Hello and welcome to a very special program today. I'm Jordana Gessler, Vice President of Education and Exhibits at Holocaust Museum LA. And today we are opening our new public art installation, the Ushpizin of the Silver Screen, which will be exhibited in our museum's outdoor memorial garden in Pan Pacific Park. The Ushpizin of the Silver Screen, created by Reboot in partnership with Holocaust Museum LA, is inspired by the idea of the Ushpizin, the Sukkot tradition of having 7 symbolic guests and inviting them into the sukkah each night. We use the Aramaic term Ushpizin because of our source of information about these mystical guests is from the Zohar, the fundamental Kabbalistic work. The Ushpizin of the Silver Screen is a reinvention of the traditional sukkah as an old-time Hollywood-era movie house, projecting stories on screens to commemorate this unprecedented time and to give voice to the community. While capturing the culture of Los Angeles, the exhibit will transform our perception of the Sukkot tradition and invite guests to think critically about the need to gather and come together during troubled times. While the sukkah will remain empty, symbolic of the separation we face daily, whether it be due to geographic distance, the pandemic, or social injustice, it will present and invite diverse stories to be told and retold throughout the year in a digital space. You will learn more about the installation from our guests here today. And if you are able to and in the area, please travel to our museum in the next week during Sukkot. I encourage you to visit to experience this remarkable art installation. Although our indoor space is closed, Holocaust Museum LA is providing virtual programming like this webinar every week. And now we are thrilled to add to that programming this in-person, socially distanced outdoor experience. The Ushpizin of the Silver Screen is a collaboration of Reboot and Holocaust Museum LA, made possible with the generous support of Canvas. The work is part of a national project, Dwelling in a Time of Plagues, which makes new outdoor art possible at museum sites with organizational support from the Council of American Jewish Museums. Other work on display is at the Oregon Jewish Museum and Center for Holocaust Education in Portland and the Jewish History Museum in Tucson. We are pleased to have with us today some of the people behind this exhibit. Melissa Yaverbaum, who's the Executive Director of the Council of American Jewish Museums, David Katz-Nelson, the CEO of Reboot, Tiffany Wolf, the filmmaker and installation artist, and Noam Dromi, the Managing Director of Reboot Studios. We will hear briefly from each guest, and then we'll have a more in-depth discussion about the exhibition. We will try to leave some time at the end of the program for audience questions. So you have a question, please click on the Q&A icon and type in your question there. I'll now turn it over to Melissa.
Thanks so much, Jordana, and congratulations to everyone on this important art installation in Los Angeles. As Jordana mentioned, I'm Melissa Martin-Javerbaum, and I'm the Executive Director of the Council of American Jewish Museums, and we are the Issues Forum and central address for Jewish museums in North America. And one thing that we believe in all of our programming is looking at next practice in the field. We already know that our Jewish museums always engage in best practice to preserve our material heritage and to tell our stories. But we have a lot of issues facing us, and there will be a lot of new challenges in the weeks, months, years, and decades ahead. And so we always look to partner with organizations that can help advance that work. I knew that this season we had both a challenge and an opportunity, that Judaism, Jewish life, Jewish ritual would not be able to be practiced in standard configurations. And a few months ago, I said to David and to the other partners that work with Canvas, you know what, if we can't get together in the ways we typically get together, how are we going to acknowledge the turning of the page into the new year? If getting together with family and friends at tables or going to congregations is not in the cards, we need art to help illuminate and make meaning for these times. And we need it to bring us together even in trickier or more complex ways. And so in looking at what museums had available to them in their repertoire, We know that a lot of museums in America right now are trying to open or with limited hours, but that's a region to region proposition. And that for the season ahead, we can't count on galleries being open. But what we can count on is what we express with our outdoor facades and outdoor spaces. As I was listening to Brian Stevenson talk with Rabbi Sharon Brous at the services of ICAR on Yom Kippur, he was saying, what does our landscape communicate about our values and about justice? And we all have a lot of work to do to recalibrate that tone and that conversation. And I believe that Jewish museums and artists together can help send a new message. So David and I, looking at precedent of projects such as Reboot Sukkah City of 2010, said we need more of that in the world. How are we going to look at the holidays ahead, especially those that cue to the nice weather, as a real opportunity to come together in safe ways and explore new messages? So I'm so proud that the 3 museums that were selected, including Holocaust Museum LA, have seized this opportunity. I could tell you that what we're modeling is also next practice in the partnerships in Jewish culture and the arts. Usually exhibits can take years to come together and ripen. This took weeks, and it's because of the talents and dedication of the museum, of Reboot, of the artist Tiffany Wolf, that we were able to pull this off. And I think it's really remarkable when you really think that in weeks we could produce something like this. I'm so proud to see new practices in the field at large. So that's the backstory to the project. I encourage everyone who could come see it in person to do so in Los Angeles. And for those who can't, we're representing the works online at plaguesdwelling.com. And there's going to be a lot more in the year ahead. So that's the backstory, and I'll let others talk more specifically about the work. David?
Unmute myself. Okay, there you go. Sorry about that. I'm still saying I'm very excited about being here today. That's what I was saying. Very, very excited about being here today. And I've been seeing photos for the last 12 hours of this sukkah getting erected, a sukkah like no other. Just really proud to be here. And Melissa, thank you for everything and for getting us here. Really terrific. And again, I want to thank Canvas and Luke Cove for providing the funding for this all to happen. And Reboot is a Jewish arts and culture organization. We reimagine and reinforce Jewish traditions through arts and culture for wandering Jews in the world that we live in, and we've been doing it for 19 years. And I would like to think that this sukkah that's coming up now is just a perfect celebration of the way we like to do our work. I'm so excited to be working with Beth and the museum. We've worked together before, but not on this scope. And just really excited to be working with you guys and just loving it. Everything that Melissa said is very, very true. We had talked about what we should do during this year when we can't congregate, we can't go into our museum facilities, and we can't celebrate the holidays like we usually celebrate them. We were actually thinking of bringing Sukkah City back. It's 10 years old. It's been 10 years since we ran that project in New York and had 250,000 people sitting in some of the craziest looking sukkahs you ever saw. But because of COVID, obviously we couldn't do it. So when this opportunity came up, and we had an artist named Tiffany Wolf, who was already engaged in some incredible work around bringing these voices that you would not normally always hear from, to center stage. And knowing how sukkahs traditionally are about bringing those kind of voices into the sukkah setting while we're celebrating this new year, it just felt like such a great opportunity to do something like what we're doing now. And if any of you in Los Angeles will be able to see the sukkah in the flesh, you will know that doing big things and doing them beautifully, that's what we're really committed to doing. Excellent work like this. I didn't do this work. This is being done by other people who are on this call, Tiffany and Noam and dozens of others at this point. But I'm very, very happy to oversee it and very happy to kind of show off what Reboot does. We're an organization that not everybody knows a lot about, and these are the kind of things that we can do publicly that people can really see and touch and feel and get a sense of, wow, this is Judaism in the 21st century, and this is what Judaism can offer during a time when there's so much that can't be offered. Just happy to be on this. I'm not sure who I'm passing it to next, but thank you for letting me be here, and just really excited to see how this is all coming together.
We were going to invite Tiffany to speak next a little bit about, as an artist, her inspiration and taking us through the journey of conception to design to installation.
Do you mind if I just quickly introduce her? This is an old friend of mine who is an amazing artist who has been working in the field of film for a very long time and started dedicating herself to this incredible work you're going to hear more from right now. I'm honored and always happy to introduce my dear friend and one of the warmest people you can meet, Tiffany Wolf.
Oh, what an introduction. Thank you, David, Melissa, Jordana, the entire team behind this incredible effort to bring public art to life during this time of COVID. It has really been a privilege to be a part of this project. I'm going to show a clip that kind of gives the background of our work at Silver Screen Studios. For the past few years, with Reboot's incredible guidance and help, we've been traveling the country interviewing older loved ones and role models and legends we love to capture their stories. As COVID has come upon us, we realize that these stories are more important than ever. And being that the older population was already an overlooked community, but now in COVID, there's been an almost disappearance where our elders are the most impacted by quarantine, and they're the most resilient and have the most to offer other generations on how to get through this challenging time. So when I was given this opportunity to reimagine a sukkah, I thought, well, how could we house the stories of our elders? How could we celebrate them and honor them under this time in quarantine? And we thought, well, let's build an old Hollywood style era movie house. And I guess we can talk about it after the clip, but the theme is called the Ushpizin of the silver screen. And I guess we can talk about it more after, but there's a whole story involved. We're showing clips of films from our series, Dispatches in Quarantine, The Last Act, Coming of Age, as well as gratefully videos, documentary shorts from the museum as well. And our hope is that people are going to walk away from this installation learning more about Sukkot, learning more about the Ushpizin, which we can talk about. And the call to action is really to embrace your older loved ones right now, call them, check in with them, and capture their stories too. I hope if we can share this clip, it kind of gives a sense of our work with Silver Screen Studios. Hi, I'm Tiffany Wolf. I'm the co-creator of Silver Screen Studios. Thanks for watching our series. I started Silver Screen Studios a few years back. My parents died very young, and I realized as I've gotten older that I didn't have the role models to help navigate life's major milestones. There was a real void. I really missed them. So I launched the platform in 2018 with Steve Goldblum, producer for PBS NewsHour, and Noam Dromi, Emmy-winning writer and producer. And we set out and traveled the country to capture stories of incredible older seniors, both in and out of the public eye, and to really help people see what it looks like to have a great last act of your life, to be a very well-lived 85-year-old, 90-year-old, 100-year-old. It's been a real pleasure to have met so many incredible older people that have incredible stories and are often overlooked in society. And to be able to shine a light and have a platform for them to tell their stories. Well, since COVID-19, we've obviously had shift our strategy. And so we decided to just use the digital tools that we're all using right now and started this series, which is a call to action, along with interviewing incredible legends. We've had the amazing good fortune right now to check in under quarantine with the legends we love, including Carl Reiner, Norman Lear, Larry King, Ellen Burstyn, and Tommy Chong. It has been an absolute treat. And for this last episode, we wanted to share with you some words of wisdom that we can all take with us as we get through this challenging time. And we hope that you enjoy their stories as much as we do.
So many choices, no one dominates the media. I remember when I got the Walter Cronkite Award and he presented it to me. That was early in my career. Cronkite was the kind of figure who he changed the opinion of Vietnam. There's nobody like that today. There is no single person in the United States with the power to change the United States. None exists. Too much media, I can't knock it, because you got so many choices. I'm not sure if you're better off, but you sure have choices. There are no John Kennedys around. So I would say I'm hopeful. I'm encouraged about the best in human beings, although my late friend Edward Bennett Williams, the great lawyer, I asked him if he was optimistic or pessimistic, and he said, of course I'm pessimistic, I'm smart.
I thought, I wanted to add that little piece with Larry King. I just thought it was apropos for the week. So should we talk about, if I can kind of get into the exhibition, Jordana, if you want to.
Yeah, can you just introduce Noam, who's very excitedly on the ground in the sukkah,
yes.
On site, and gives Noam a few minutes to kind of explain his role in this, and then we can jump into the deeper discussion.
Perfect. Noam Dromi is the managing director of Reboot Studios, and he's my co-creator of Silver Screen Studios, my compatriot, my consigliere, my partner, my director. And he's been an incredible source of talent and genius around the series and around the making of the sukkah. So I'll pass it off to Noam.
Hi, first and foremost. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now? Yes. A pleasure to be with everyone. Our sukkah is adhering to COVID regulations and social distancing, so thank you for indulging me with the mask. As both Melissa and David pointed out, we're at a really unique intersection when it comes to how we can continue to experience and support the arts during a time where we're unfortunately unable to congregate. And the work that these kinds of organizations in partnership with Holocaust Museum Los Angeles have enabled continues to allow people to experience art. Art feeds our souls, it informs our passions, it educates us, it challenges us. And this sukkah, created by Tiffany Wolf, with an amazing team behind her bringing it to life, is a reminder of the fact that even at times where things feel particularly uncertain, we're able to still create and innovate and do really incredible things. My work at Reboot, of which I have been, I've been a rebooter, as it were, for 19 years. David and I met when I was a wee lad and got to know each other, and now have the privilege of being able to work together as well. And when COVID began, he gave me a very clear mandate. He said that with organizations like Council of Jewish American Museums, with organizations like Canvas, we are going to ensure that Jewish artists are still able to create, that even if they can't do what they ordinarily would do, that we're going to create a platform and provide some funding to enable them to do that. And Tiffany was an immediate artist who we thought of, that we wanted to be able to support and extend her very important work. We're in a culture and a community where sadly we often neglect our seniors, both in a literal and figurative sense. People are put out to pasture. We don't really benefit from the wisdom, the candor, the guidance of people who have been through things far worse than what any of us could necessarily ever imagine. But the sukkah is about celebrating them. It's about understanding that at a time where older adults are disproportionately impacted by COVID, we want to create a platform that tells their stories, that lets others know by way of a call to action that the simple act of calling an older loved one, of maybe finding a way to contact them on Zoom or whatever, is a lifeline that is absolutely essential. And this art really celebrates that around a very compelling theme of the invited guest, of the values that each of the Ushpizin and their female counterparts, the Ushpizot, represent. And we have put together, you know, since no one in LA can go to movies right now, we've put together our version of a movie theater, and it's pretty amazing. So I thought what I would do, since I'm actually here, is show it to you guys. Does that sound good?
Yes, definitely.
All right. So bear with me. I'm going to just flip. I'm sorry, Jordana, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was saying we're so excited to see it.
Okay, so bear with me. I'm inside, and then I'll take you outside. So Tiffany found this amazing photo. It is a Sukkot celebration from the early 1920s. We've got the lulav here, our cinemas that are showing tickets, a throwback to a time where tickets were only 25 cents. The film's playing here on our makeshift screen. I know there's a little bit of a reflection, so you'll forgive me. Our little clapper board, our popcorn cum etrog machine. And now I'm going to take you guys outside as well. Just bear with me for 1 second. Now, I just want to reiterate, when people come and see it, they will not be able to go inside, but they will be able to experience it and still enjoy what they can see. Some more posters on the side. We've got our sandwich board, thanking all the amazing people who made this a reality. A little bit of an explanation. And for our social distancing markers, we've called out all 7 Ushpizot, what they represent for each particular day of the week, and then the 7 male Ushpizin as well. So, as I said, we're practicing good COVID compliance, making sure that everyone can enjoy this amazing experience and at the same time remain safe. And let me just head back inside. And there you go. Thank you again for the opportunity to be a part of this. Thank you to Tiffany, who conceived of this amazing idea and gave our team the creative vision by which to bring it forth. And of course, David Katz-Nelson at Reboot, and all the other good folks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noam. If I can just speak a little bit, Jordana, to the Ushbizen story to give context, is that okay?
Please.
Okay, so we came up with this idea, you know, again, we want to house the stories of our elders and celebrate them right now, but also we wanted to offer a moment and a story about Sukkot as well. So the Ushpizin, which I'm learning a lot about now, are the 7 spiritual guests that visit the Sukkot on a regular Sukkot when you're gathering with your families, which of course we can't do this year because of COVID. You save a seat for the Ushpizin, who there's one that comes every night. There are our exalted spiritual guests. I've learned that there's also a female Ushpizin, so we've included them as well. And every night, each Ushpizin comes into the sukkah to shed and share a theme for that evening: benevolence, kindness, justice. And it's each night has a theme around these values. So we really loved that idea. So inside the sukkah, there's one solitary movie chair, which represents the isolation that we are all in right now, that we're all isolated and solitary. But also it's saving a chair for the Ushpizin to make his nightly visits to spread goodwill and learnings to us. And then on the inside of the sukkah is a movie screen, as if the Ushpizin is watching the movies and celebrating our elders, which we are also projecting in these short films. So I just wanted to give a little context.
Yeah, I love that. And really, when we talk about this idea of guests, I mean, as artists, we invite guests and people to come and interpret our art pieces. As a Council of Jewish Museums, we invite guests, as in museum educators from across the globe, to come and have really meaningful conversations. As rebooters, we invite people to rethink and reimagine our connections with Judaism. So I love this notion of utilizing the Ushpizin as our inspiration for the art piece. And I kind of want to open the conversation with looking at the fact that today on our panel is we're a collective of artists, of Jewish educators, of museum professionals. How does this art piece speak to both the Jewish traditions, the culture of Los Angeles, the history of Hollywood, the problems that are really unique facing us in 2020, and the responsibility of museums and Jewish organizations to be thought leaders and community gatherers during this time? So I wanted to open this up. And I also, speaking to the people who are joining us today, feel free to drop your own questions in the Q&A box and we'll get to them. So I figured we would start this off by hearing from all of our guests on this idea of what are our roles, what does this represent, and what are our responsibilities?
I'll start off just by offering that as I walk around New York, I'm based in New York, all of New York looks like a sukkah right now, because the only restaurants that you experience are mostly outdoor experiences. We just moved to 25% allowed indoors for capacity. But almost any meal you would eat in public would be in something that looks like a sukkah. And so even if it's not actually part of Jewish culture, right now there's this wild mind meld, right? Where if someone was walking around Brooklyn, they wouldn't know if they were looking at a Jewish neighborhood or a not necessarily Jewish neighborhood, because that is the way we are all experiencing communal meals at all. And I think that when we, in a way, there's this enactment of Sukkot happening, even for people that don't observe or know what Sukkot is. And so for us to own that meaning and that opportunity and that frame and say, what is the Jewish historical and culturally inherited perspective that we can put forth on that? So it's not only about a container for meeting or eating, but what else is the frame offering us as a vista to look through? And as I look around Brooklyn, you know, some of these, there's a lot of beautiful restaurant kiosks where people are eating, and how they're decorated and how they're designed really says a lot about them. So for us as Jewish arts presenters to put forth a sukkah in this year, what does it mean and what is the opportunity? And I love how this project really prioritized voices of people whose stories aren't always heard in the public sphere, and to look at ageism and to look at how will we illuminate what is untold, I think is an ongoing responsibility of ours. And Jewish museums already do that very naturally, but now's the perfect year to be tapping into stories that we don't normally have the opportunity to showcase. And so I think it's a great frame and it's a great starting place.
You know, and again, I want to just build on what Melissa so eloquently said. I think it's really the responsibility for museums and art organizations right now to redesign the Jewish future. I think everyone has experienced a crazy high holidays over the past couple weeks, going on Zoom, figuring out how to celebrate in the ways that they see best during a time when we can't congregate. We are a community apart, but still a community, and how we tell our stories. And I think that when you think about redesigning the future, I honestly believe it's the artists who are going to be the ones to help us do that. I think that we're going to be taking voices from the past and our traditions, which is such an amazing aspect of this exhibit, I think we're going to figure out how to bring them forward. And I think this sukkah, especially with the museum, who's, been collecting stories for so many years. And some of those stories, by the way, are featured in this sukkah during this during this time of Sukkot. It's the vital time now. It's the vital time now to figure out that, and also to be radically welcoming. So anyone can come, anyone can see these stories. I can't imagine anyone coming and not taking something from them that applies to the universal lives that we all lead. And I just think that's really what we should be exemplifying for all arts and cultural organizations. And that's what's part of what's so exciting to me about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of talked about oral history and storytelling, David. At the Holocaust Museum LA, we are constantly inviting survivors to share their experiences with the next generation of young leaders. And we've definitely needed to shift that during COVID to a virtual platform. And really, when you think about it, oral history and sharing stories orally is a really ancient form of communal learning. I mean, the Odyssey was shared orally before it was written down. We have the Torah Baal Peh. And I guess asking Tiffany, when you were conceiving this notion and thinking about the separation we were feeling, and I know that you initially shifted your mission to bringing stories virtually and having these conversations, did you find that there were any challenges or obstacles that you hadn't, thought would happen? Were there any surprises that came about? And can you speak a little bit to like the collection of these stories that we're so honored to have our own survivors be a part of, but tell us about this process and why it was important to be the centerpiece of the sukkah.
Thank you for asking. I find that COVID has been such an incredibly interesting time. I think it's really, it's a time of grace in some ways and authenticity. It's a time to be capturing stories and grievances and forgiveness and having real conversations right now that I don't think we had before. It's kind of brought a sense of truth and integrity to our lives. And I feel like that really came through with these dispatches from quarantine videos. It really shows that time is of the essence. I mean, we really learned with Carl Reiner's video that we did. I don't know if you're aware of this, but we actually, we were the last interview that he gave before he passed away, which surprisingly, I woke up, heard about Carl Reiner's passing, and then found out from Time Magazine that we were the final interview. He was gracious enough to tweet about it because he liked it so much. We were told, and whether this is true or not, we're taking it, that Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner with their TV trays after Jeopardy watched the segment together. So that's like my bucket list moment. But I think that it really just shows the importance of this work of in this moment, where people want to have real conversations and capture real conversations. And I feel like people are more open to that right now. There's just an openness maybe that there wasn't before. So that's why I was really happy to have this opportunity to again, house these stories in a way that's in a public forum, because, as we've been building this outside the museum, people are coming up and asking about it. And they're so grateful to have something to look at right now. With the museums being shuttered and closed, people were thanking us, which was so gracious of, wow, thank you for offering this public art space so we can have something to enjoy during this time. So that's been a real treat to see people already responding to that, that idea of let's bring art out into the public spaces right now because we can't be inside.
And I kind of want to just check, because I know, Noam, you said that nobody can physically come into the sukkah. So how can visitors access these films? How can they watch this 4-hour loop?
Sure. The television that is displaying it is a 70-inch screen. It sits directly adjacent to the plexiglass windows, and the audio lets you hear it from 400, 500 feet away. So I can sort of try and show it to you right now so you get a sense of it. And then we've got QR codes, so we will point to, people can then go online to silverscreenstudios.org/Ushpizin, and they will be able to access and watch the films as well.
Great, thank you. And Tiffany Jacqueline from our audience is asking that you have so many great interviews. Which one of them is your favorite?
Well, I have to be honest. I think that's the question coming from my 11-year-old son, Max. One of my biggest fans. And luckily my kids, just to mention, one of the treats of filming these Zoom movies from home is I've gotten to introduce them to Carl Reiner and Norman Lear and Larry King. I figure what are the chances that my kids are going to be able to meet these legends? So with every Zoom call, I've said, could you be so kind to meet my kids? So that's been an added bonus. Wow. Favorite films, it's amazing because we have interviewed, of course, legends we love, but Carl Reiner, of course, was one of my favorites. But I would say Risa Eaglefeld from our Coming of Age series. She's a Holocaust survivor. Some of the everyday stories, the stories of maybe stars that need to shine a spotlight on them. They're just, people in our community have more incredible stories than, than the celebrities. And for example, Risa Eaglefeld, who's 102, we had the privilege to interview her last year. She's a Holocaust survivor. She's outlived her children and her husbands. And she has a refrigerator filled with positive affirmations, notes of positive affirmations. And I said to her, how do you keep going? How do you every day you stay so positive? And she said, you must always follow the blessings. And in that moment, I thought, wow, this is why I do the work I do, is to meet these incredible people. And I get to be the lucky recipient of their beautiful knowledge and their at that age to stay positive and curious and grateful. I'm 49, but it's like a roadmap of what I want to be like.
And I'm thrilled that you shared that, because I think there's so many important individuals, both famous in their own lives and their private lives, in this 4-hour film. And there are many, many messages that I think are important for all of us to think on. And really, to me, the call to action of this art installation is for all of us to take a moment and stop and think about our heritage, our tradition, the elders in our lives, the elders in our community, and how we can reach out across these barriers that separate us and really join an intergenerational dialogue. So I love that that's a key piece of this sukkah, because it's really a key piece of the mission of the museum. And I guess I wanted to ask Melissa and also David, how might this installation be a model for how museums and Jewish artists and organizations can connect and educate and celebrate during a time of COVID? Because I know I've definitely heard, Melissa, you talk about this, but museums might be changed for several years because of COVID. And so how do you envision this shaping and reframing the way that we think of these institutions?
I think it's not only an immediate creative response to our predicament now, but it's to look at our opportunities in a really different way. One thing David and I have been talking about for years and got expressed in this project is, how can we activate the potential of museums in new ways? How can we bring new configurations of talents together? And how can we act more quickly and break down barriers to entry? And I think that this kind of project really shows that it doesn't have to be so long and so hard and so difficult to mount the work of artists and to bring new voices to the table. And I'm really excited at the way that museums have stepped up to this equation. The other ones that are participating in this project for Sukkot include the Oregon Jewish Museum and Center for Holocaust Education in Portland, who worked with Asylum Arts and the artist Adam McKinney on their piece, Shelter in Place. And it's a beautiful piece. It looks at the Black Jewish gay body as the vessel, and what that means historically, what that means in the contemporary moment, what that means for racism, anti-Semitism, and identity. We also are working with the Jewish History Museum in Tucson, Arizona. They partnered with LABA and the artist Mirta Kupferning of Argentina to produce Clamor in the Desert, which looks at the issues of immigration and refugees and displaced voices. And so I think that these three projects in constellation are really showing a new vocabulary for traditional producers of culture and exhibition. We're also going to be launching another iteration of this project for Passover in 2021. We've had a lot of interest. We've had a lot of great interest. And when we think about the potential to use outdoor space, I think the possibilities are really limitless. And we're not only changing the opportunities for artists and museums, but we're also reinventing Jewish ritual objects in the meantime. I think when we look back on this period of history, there's going to be a tremendous record of material culture and what shifted, but some things are going to change forever. And I think that this is really the next chapter of innovation. So that's one take on it. David, what are you seeing?
Oh, I mean, I think things are changing forever. I think that what this moment in time is really a bridge from one world to the next, where the technologies that have been in play for a couple of years are now really becoming wed to a lot of the more physical manifestations in which how we've appreciated art. And I come to this as somewhat of a Luddite, so just to throw it out there. But nevertheless, I think we need to embrace the future. And I think that the ideas of how to connect with collections, when, you know, in the past, a lot of collections have had to be behind the walls of the museums. You know, I think that the way that we can plan projects for people to come connect with them in different ways, I think that's changing, and that needs to be embraced. You know, the way we think about our space is going to be changing and needs to be embraced. And I think that it's just exciting to be on the front lines with you and all these other artists and museums to rethink it. I don't think anybody was prepared for this. And at the same time, I think there are those who are really ready to jump into the unknown. And I think that's the only way we're going to get to somewhere that, you know, makes some sort of like understanding semblance in the future. And so I think that, you know, as long as we can continue to do that, I mean, as Tiffany was talking about Dispatches from Quarantine, we went from having to create a studio to bring people to and to bring, you know, an interviewer to, and all of a sudden we're on Zoom, zooming into people's lives and being able to interview them. They don't have to leave their house. That's kind of exciting as far as a way of connecting with people, and it's exciting as a distribution model too. So I just feel like this moment in time is just the beginning of what the future is going to bring, and it's not going to be left behind. It's just going to be incorporated.
Tiffany, did you want to add something? I thought I saw you raise a hand.
Oh, I was just nodding.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess when you were I guess one of my last questions for you, Tiffany, is, you know, what do you hope visitors take away from this art piece? You know, what do you want them to leave thinking, feeling, doing?
Another good question. Thank you. Again, I just hope we're going to spread a little joy. You know, Sukkot is really one of the Feast of Joys festival. So I would love for people to have, again, a cultural moment during this time where those are hard to come by. And also just in the terms of Jewish learnings and family and always looking back to look forward. My hope is that they'll be moved by these stories. And again, it's the celebrities we love. That's really kind of the hook to bring in the other stories. But I'd love to take it a step further, where after people come to this exhibit, they decide to call their grandmother and throw it up on Zoom, whatever digital tools we can use right now, because it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's, you know, this is a time of imperfection. And it doesn't have to be so precious, but if you can capture the stories in any way you can right now, even a 5-minute call or recording. One of the reasons I started this project was when I was in Hebrew school, and I was about 9 years old, my teacher had me on the boom box with the cassette tape record my parents at dinner, and you could hear like the clinking of the glass and my parents talking. I found that cassette tape, and I was interviewing them about 5-10 years ago, and I thought, oh my God, I'm so glad I have this. What I would give to talk to them again, what I would give to have a conversation. And if you do have the privilege to have your parents or grandparents alive or older loved ones, I just implore you to capture that, because it has so much meaning now and after they're gone.
I'll just also add to that, that if there are important stories in your family or your community, between the work of Reboot and Tiffany and Council of American Jewish Museums and museums like Holocaust Museum LA, we're doing national oral history collecting. That if you have important stories, my organization is working with 9 partner museums already, and we're looking to make that a much bigger geographic project. And so just with the faces you see on the screen here, don't hesitate, don't wait. If you know of important stories in your community that are going to record this chapter of the American Jewish story, this is the time, and you can reach out to any of us, and we will make sure you are in good hands to make sure those stories are recorded and survive.
Thank you. Yes, and that is true. We're so fortunate to be working on that other project with Melissa and Kajim. And I know there are a few questions in the audience about when they can see this art installation, and it will be available from today until next Friday. So during the duration of Sukkot. I think this is a really great, it's almost a shirt that Sukkot is on, the first night is on Shabbat this evening, really a night of gathering, having Ushpizin, having guests, having conversations, asking questions of the elders in your life, recording them. So I think the message today is to really, we implore you to do that. We invite you to come to the museum. I'm gonna do any of my fellow panelists have some last words, wanna share what Ushpizin they're inviting to their own sukkah this year. But I really do, we're so appreciative to have been working with you guys during this incredible, incredible project. Tiffany?
Oh, I'll just mention, first of all, thank you again for everyone for this incredible opportunity. It's really been, gosh, a highlight for me. So, and for the team, and for, this was a massive group effort. I personally am going to be there. I'm leaving the webinar to head down to the museum. So Noam and myself will be on hand today, this afternoon. We'd love to socially distantly meet you in person and talk about the exhibit in person. If you would like to come down and meet us in person to talk about the exhibit. Thank you, and thank you again.
Thank you guys. This has been such an exciting project. Melissa?
Yeah, just to say thank you to the visionary leadership and investment of Canvas and their team, because these types of conversations and these kinds of partnerships were absolutely made possible by that investment and their ongoing encouragement. And even though I think all of us knew each other in one configuration a year ago, this accelerated creativity was really made possible by Canvas.
Yeah, I want to thank all of you for being here today, and Melissa for calling us a few months ago and saying, do you want to join this really innovative and new, and we don't know what it's going to look like, but we think it'll be amazing because everyone working in it is amazing. And so we're really, really lucky to have you as a friend and a colleague in this important work. So thank you everyone here. Thank you Canvas for your generous support. Before we sign off, I want to invite you, the audience, to join us again in one of our upcoming virtual programs next Wednesday, October 7th at 11 a.m. Pacific. Join us for our monthly Building Bridges panel discussion with community leaders, moderated by our museum board member and USC professor, Dan Schnur. This month's topic will be what's at stake in the 2020 election. Next Thursday, October 8th at 11 a.m. Pacific, we will be hosting a talk by Holocaust survivor Joe Hess. So we definitely invite you to come and learn from the elders in our community. You can always find out more information about all of our virtual events on our website, holocaustmuseumla.org. Thank you again for joining us today. Take care. We hope to see you soon. We hope to see you socially distanced in the next week, really taking in the incredible meaning and beauty of this art installation, this sukkah. So thank you everyone, and we look forward to seeing you. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach.
Thank you so much.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.